Welcome to the Capital Forum's Antitrust Interview Series, sponsored by Kroll Discovery. My name is McCrory Dostorian, and I'm delighted to be here today with Jeff Jaeckel, co-chair of Morrison and Foerster's Global Antitrust Group in Washington, D.C.
Great, thank you.
So today we'll be discussing international agency cooperation. And so in January, the DOJ's Antitrust Division and the FTC issued revised guidelines on international enforcement and cooperation. How do these guidelines differ from the 1995 version?
It's a good question. So, since the agencies issued the initial guidelines in 1995, a lot has changed. Many more jurisdictions have antitrust enforcement regimes, and antitrust enforcement has truly gone global. Overall, though, the changes reflect just an evolution in the way the agencies in the United States think about cooperating with their counterparts in other jurisdictions. In particular, a trend towards greater cooperation with other jurisdictions, and reflect, frankly, a broadening view of the antitrust division's interpretation of the Supreme Court's Empagran decision and what it means for foreign application of U.S. antitrust laws in the cartel enforcement context.
So what do you think these changes are telling us about their approach then going forward for these multi-jurisdictional cases?
So I think what the department was trying to tell us is that they view their mandate broadly, in cartel enforcement in particular. And the message is they will try to extend the Sherman Act to cover sales just about anywhere in the world if there's any arguable basis to bring them into the United States. And that's the rest of the changes were refinements reflecting the globalization of antitrust. That one is a meaningful change that sends a message to the international community.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the examples of the type of cases that would be caught under these changes?
So I think the place you see them most right now are in electronic component cartels, for example, where you have conduct that occurs largely outside the United States, products that are manufactured largely outside the United States, sold to customers who are generally based outside the United States, and ultimately incorporated into items that are manufactured and sold to customers in the U.S. And there has been quite a bit of disagreement under U.S. law, under the FTAIA, whether the Sherman Act reaches that commerce. Plaintiffs' bar in the U.S. certainly wants it to reach that commerce. The Antitrust Division has put their marker down that they think that they can reach a lot of that commerce with the Sherman Act, notwithstanding the FTAIA.
And what do you think will be sort of the impact of this new administration, especially because we've heard so much about America First, both during the campaign and now afterwards?
That is a really good question in a number of dimensions in this context. First, the last 20 years have been characterized by increased cooperation between antitrust enforcers around the world, often through multilateral organizations like the ICN. This administration, not specifically the individuals who will be running the antitrust enforcement agencies, but this administration more broadly, seems to have a general hostility or antipathy towards multilateral organizations. And so in one sense, that may mean international cooperation is more difficult than it has been in the past. More specifically, in this cartel enforcement context, it's really quite difficult to predict. We in the antitrust bar have always thought that cartel enforcement was relatively bipartisan. It's the one piece of the antitrust agenda that liberals and conservatives alike can agree merits aggressive enforcement. So in that sense, we wouldn't necessarily expect there to be a big change with the new administration in the way they apply the FTAIA, but it's possible that they take a less interventionist approach and step back a little bit, particularly if there's a sense in which U.S. companies or U.S. employment could arguably benefit from some of the conduct that might otherwise have been challenged in previous administrations.
And do you see, for example, there being changes to some of these confidentiality requirements, all these sorts of, or leniency agreements, all the sorts of things that are usually used as tools in cartel prosecutions? Will they be impacted as well?
So there likely will be some impact. but there are cross currents in the practice right now. In the United States, in part because of the Yates memo and the emphasis under the Obama administration towards individual accountability, there has frankly been some ratcheting back of the leniency program with respect to individuals at companies. But it's not clear whether that will continue under the Trump administration. Abroad, we still see a proliferation of leniency programs, and with a downturn in cartel enforcement overall as we move out of the auto parts cartels, it's possible that antitrust enforcers feel they need to richen the benefits of leniency to try to draw the next wave of industry cartels into the enforcement program.
I see. Well, thank you. That's I think wraps up our chat for today.
Perfect. Thank you.
And thank you for coming.